Well, hi, everybody. It's the Week in the Tackle podcast, the podcast where we get together on a weekly basis and tackle things in the world of football we think were interesting. I'm Tom Rennie. Alongside me is a man who went dressed as Harry Maguire for Halloween, which means he didn't wear a costume. It is MLS legend and top broadcaster, Mr. Brian Dunny Dunseth. Hello, mate. You all right?
I'm doing good. I got I was good. Yeah, flick on. I'm good, mate. How are you? How was Halloween? Did you trick or treat with the kids? You get anything done?
I despise Halloween and everything about it. Yeah. I despise the general Americanization of British culture brought to you by the American social media companies. But I think maybe the worst thing you've brought to us is... But the second worst thing you brought to us is Halloween. It's awful. It's dreadful. It's a weird celebration of murder and ghosts. And why would... I mean, I get the concept of being a beautiful 17-year-old woman going to a party dressed as a slutty cat. I get it. Sounds cool. But apart from that, I don't get it. Why people are dressing up as why are adults dressing up as things to go to a party? Don't get it. Don't like it. Not into it.
I don't know if you could see, this is just my front yard. Can we get a good look? There. That's just my front yard. You got a 6-foot dog, and then you've got a 12-foot skeleton. That's just, I am a very pro Halloween guy to the point where September 1st, Halloween stuff goes up. So we couldn't be more of polar opposites, which I respect. Yes. And I think that's why this works, this friendly fire of banter every single week that we do. But man, you're an idiot. It's the best holiday in the world. There's nothing that comes close to Halloween because Thanksgiving, similar to your conversation of what you just described, same. But then Christmas, it's terrible. Nothing comes out of it. You wake up in the morning and all your kids do is open 3. You've got 10 presents. They focus on 2 or 3. And then it's just oh, great, Timmy, go play with your toys. And the rest of them sit in the corner for another week. By the way, that's why we just travel all the time. Because my wife and we did a test one time. And for Christmas, my wife comes from a very toys and gifts. And I'm 3 or 4 max was what I grew up with. And so one year we did the whole thing where we're all right, this is going to be the test. And if this test goes in my direction, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to travel from now on over Christmas. We're going to do life and experience over things. But if they go into your direction, we'll continue this thing and this history of how Christmas goes. I'm not joking. Our older boys must have left about 10 presents on the table. And I said, if they don't touch these presents for a week, I'm returning every single one of them. I kept all the receipts, and wouldn't you know it, Rennie? All those presents went back, and the next year we were on the travel schedule. So on Christmas.
But right, if you what you don't like is capitalism, and I agree. That's a bad thing, and we shouldn't have capitalism. Vote Zoran, and is that his name? And Zach Polanski. Vote for him. Fine, sure, that's cool. But Halloween, so a bad Christmas is ultra capitalism. A good Christmas is family being together, eating food, and being joyous. A good Halloween is what? Watching sexy teens get murdered by the lake, and then and also gutting a pumpkin is the single most disgusting thing to do. Taking the innards of a pumpkin is the worst activity to do with a child because they get messy, the table gets messy. Their pumpkins look crap.
You do it outside. Yeah.
But it's my outside. It's my garden. So I'm still cleaning it.
That's true.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Good catch up.
Gosh, you're a complainer.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
Next thing you're going to try to do is convince me that soccer players should have pockets.
Now, I still believe this is the absolute right thing to do. And on the football show today, if you go onto my social media, folks, you'll be able to see a full video of me in some very tight drain pipe 2005 indie club jeans showing our friend Danny Higginbottom that if you had bum pockets in your shorts, you'd never give a handball away again. I always thought shorts in the front or cargo shorts would work. But if you had a couple of slip-in pockets in the back of your football shorts, every time you go in the penalty area, you grab hold of your own bum cheeks and you'll never give a penalty away again because your arms and hands will always be in an expected position. So
I'm actually looking for this right now. Yeah, I'm looking for this. There's just one minor thing. Is this a natural defensive position?
What, to hold the buttocks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah. Yeah.
During a soccer match, during a football match.
Imagine you're at like a wedding with elderly aunts. You got to protect the buttocks at all times.
By the way, Danny's face is even better than you doing your Rockettes kick with your hands in your pocket because he's so disgusted at the notion of what you are trying to produce. Your hands in pockets, hands in front, and you're doing like you keep doing this. I mean, I can't hear. I can't. All I'm doing is seeing you do like the Rockettes kick with your hands in your pockets. So that looks natural, way more natural than the idea of hands in pockets for a soccer match.
It's another example of us non-footballers saving football for footballers and footballers not a
Danny's face. Danny's face. He can't believe you're
Yeah.
doing what you're doing. No shame, Rennie. No shame.
He's hit career rock bottom working alongside me on a Tuesday. Anyway, there's a few things I want to talk to you about today. Before we get into that, if you are listening to this program as a podcast on Spotify, you can subscribe on Apple. If you're listening on Apple, where the majority of our listeners are, why not subscribe on Spotify as well? So if you listen to music over there, you'll be able to listen to the podcast. It'll be pushed to you on Spotify when you're listening to music. So subscribe on both platforms and subscribe to us on YouTube as well to get good quality football content in your algorithm. The show is posted weekly. You can watch it in full. And maybe as a reward, let's say we had another 100 subscribers this week, which is what we're doing at the moment. Maybe I will do my special leg dance if we had 1,000 this week and we'll post it somewhere. Maybe even without trousers this time.
Whoa,
I don't know.
Hey.
Anyway, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify, subscribe on Apple. Tell your friends. Tell one friend this week about Week in the Tackle. We would appreciate it. Right. Football. That's it. Football podcast. A few things I wanted to talk to you about today. And I wanted to start with Tottenham because I do find Tottenham endlessly fascinating. And what I found fascinating this week, I don't know if you heard any of the Sirius XM kind of Premier League live commentary this week, but I had two Spurs fans doing the game, which wasn't a plan because I had to move things around. It was originally meant to be me, and I moved to a later game. So I had Dave Kitson, who's a Spurs fan, and our commentator John's a Spurs fan as well. And you've never heard a more disgusted commentary by two people trying to not sound disgusted in your life by a Spurs performance. And there's a bit at the end of this game, I don't know if people remember it, where they've got a free kick on the halfway line, Spurs. They've been woeful. They're losing 1-0. They should be 4-0 down. Vicario's got the ball. He's the goalkeeper. Jed Spence to his right, but everyone's gone forward. All the defence are forward. We're going to bomb this forward now. And then Vicario randomly passes it to Spence, who can't get forward. It goes back to Vicario, and they can't even punt a long ball forward properly. At the full-time whistle, Jed Spence and Mickey van der Ven walked past Thomas Frank in the same way like you'd walk past your ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend in the shopping centre. Just like, no, don't talk to me, mate. I know you with Debbie now. No. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. I know I left stuff there. I'm not coming to get it. Screw you, right? That was basically what they did to Thomas Frank. Now, he has said, and we have heard, and I don't necessarily doubt it, that Mickey van der Ven has gone to his office to apologise, as has Jed Spence. But in the moment, it did seem like they were pretty peeved with their manager as well as the situation. So give us your view on that, the Mickey van der Ven, Jed Spence bit, and then more broadly on Tottenham. Considering from the outside, it seems like they're doing all right. No one seems happy.
Yeah, there's a couple things at play. First and foremost, the lap of honor really bothers me for some reason. I don't, and again, I know we're in the modern game in which there's a lot of travelers. You have a lot of fans inside the stadiums. Obviously, the season ticket holders, the lifers, they're going to be there each and every week, and they're going to be the lifeblood of the traveling support. But you also, now it's kind of like the Disneyland conversation. You have a lot of fans that are coming, that are Spurs fans that are coming from around the world to go to London and specifically go to the stadium and want to watch their Spurs play. And they're spending thousands and thousands of pounds. And I get all that. But the lap of honor thing is always odd to me because do you do the lap of honor every single time, no matter what? Or is this just a lap of honor because you've won a football match? So in moments where I was trying to think how I would feel when my manager's walking on the field and immediately is trying to cajole me into a situation where you've got to go clap off the fans. I get it on the road. I really do. On the road, I think it's almost like a mandatory idea at this stage with the way the progression, the evolution of the idea of going over and clapping the traveling supporters, whether you win, draw, or lose. But at home, it becomes a different element because they were absolutely battered by Chelsea, just battered. London Derby, battered by Chelsea. You're right. It should have been 5-0. I think it's one shot on goal. It wasn't until Cuti Romero came on that there felt like there was manufacturing of a heartbeat, of a physicality, of a presence of like, hey man, Enzo, I love you to death on the national team, but I'm going to kick the living crap out of you for the next 20 or so minutes. At the start of the season, obviously, I'm in this group, the Tottenham Lunacy group, with Headley and Gabe Ortiz from Survivor, my buddy Lucas, and I just get hammered at the start of the year because obviously it's 3-1 Spurs to Manchester United fans in the chat. But I was complimenting them because I was saying, like, I don't think you guys are a great team right now. I think you're a competent team, but you guys are figuring out results, and you've got this unique balance of integrating new players, and you've got to now manage European football as well as, the idea of qualifying for Europe, qualifying for Champions League. But lately, I've been kind of having fun with them. A little bit of some wobbles that are happening here in the last couple of weeks, and obviously the 3-0 win against Everton releases some of the steam and some of the pressure. But I'm thinking to myself, if I'm walking out, Mickey Van de Ven has a certain amount of aura, right? So if it's just Mickey Van de Ven, you blow it off and you say, okay, this guy's his standard is outstanding. He's one of the best center backs in the Premier League. He is the heart and soul and the rock of that partnership with Cuti Romero in the back in front of Vicario. And so if he's walking off, he's just pissed. But Jed Spence with like the hand flick, that was when I was like, and then like the look back, it was like that meme of like the looking back with the guy watching the girl walk by, like, holy moly. That's where it was like 3 seconds of Thomas Frank being like, motherfucker, sorry, Tim, did you just do that to me in front of everybody? Because then all of a sudden, now that moment of kind of ill discipline turns into this big management situation where Thomas Frank then had to go and he had to like, I was almost wanting him to be like, unacceptable. This isn't the standard. We don't allow this. When I tell my players to do something, I expect them to respect my wishes and do it immediately. Because it's one thing to walk off and just put like the hand flick and like the look. And so then he's in man management mode, and come Monday, he's got, maybe the release of pressure over the weekend is a little bit less on Sunday, but come Monday at the media, he's going to have to readdress the situation. And he does so. And who knows, like if the guys come, they don't come. But I thought that was the first moment for Thomas Frank after kind of like good vibes, frustration. This is the moment where only he and these players understand. But I constantly try to tell you from a player's perspective, if you don't draw the line immediately on certain situations, that allows a tumbling situation down the line, because now what's going to be afforded is somebody else to be disrespectful, whether verbally or physically, whether it's intent or it's just something that's flippant in the moment. Now that's only going to grow bigger. It's only going to loom larger. And now the door has been cracked that will afford every media member, whether malicious or honest in their intent, to try to say, well, hey, by the way, when Jeds did this, or when Mickey Van de Ven did this, or why did Javi Simons do this, or why did Richarlison? Like, you've just allowed a little bit of a wake to turn into a tsunami down the line, because I'm not sure. I understand why they've handled it this way, but I'm not sure if this is the best way for Thomas Frank to handle that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I found
Do
it really
jumping jacks.
interesting.
Do jumping jacks. It's just gone dark.
I've got to get the lights on.
Do the jumping jacks. And a one. And
Lights
two.
on.
You didn't even do a rocket kick for us.
No, well, I'm going to get back to the podcast. We're on the clock here, aren't we? I wasn't trying to pad out time like I was during the live show to get to the end.
Poor Danny.
I found this really interesting because I think Thomas Frank's a very, very good manager, but I do think he is a defense-first manager. And like the Tottenham fans that I know, see, this is why this is interesting. There's two angles to this I wanted to put to you on top. I think they did mean to disrespect Thomas Frank, and maybe they're apologizing afterwards, and maybe they're doing a bit of cleanup on it. I think that they are not having him, and they weren't having his tactics in this game, and I think it's evident from their reaction. They blame him for the way they played against Chelsea, and they can try and mop that up until they're blue in the face. And if it was me, I'd absolutely be scrambling to mop that up, because I don't think it's appropriate behavior for them to do that to their boss, but I think that's what they were doing.
Can we really quickly, though, establish that Chelsea is a much, much, much better team than what Spurs is, and the quality of player on Chelsea right now is much higher. So from a tactical standpoint, I can understand why Thomas Frank set his team up like this, but that will never appease a fan base. That stylistically, we always have the joke about Arsenal. Your buddy that was the Arsenal fan, and no, I play Arsenal football. Like it's the same with Spurs. Spurs the same way, right? Like Spurs fans have a certain, and this is a Pochettino effect. I still think it's the Pochettino hangover. They have an idea of how they think their football should be played. So I think what Thomas Frank has to do is figure out a way within his system, right? His collective idea with his coaching staff, how is best to play the game, to get the points, to win, to ultimately qualify for Europe. In matches like this, specific at home, there's an expectation. And maybe this is just me. Maybe there's a little bit of a hangover from Big Ange Postecoglou that these Spurs fans are frustrated if they see certain elements of the way that Spurs underneath Thomas Frank are playing right now, that this kind of like, this is just a reoccurring nightmare stylistically that they don't feel like they should be playing.
Well, 2 points on that. I would say that I'm not sure I fully agree with the Chelsea squad is significantly better than Spurs. I think there's an argument to say Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, but beyond that, Garnacho and Kudus, broadly similar. I'm not a big fan of Reece James playing in midfield, whereas they had Bergvall and Bentancur and Sarr. I mean, look, these are not bad players, but I don't think the gap is so monumentally massive between the two. And Spurs are the home team. But like your point there is what I want to build on, in that they won the Europa League, which was a huge achievement. And so there's a generation of fans now that have had this massive achievement. And so it's not the narrative about Tottenham that we have pushed for 20 years has been they've got to win something. They just did. Just won an amazing trophy and an amazing tournament.
Got lucky, by the way. Got extremely lucky, by the way.
Of course they did, facing the worst Man United ever. That cost only like £3 billion to get there. But like, fine. But they did win it. And so now there is no narrative of, but we've got to win something, because a generation of Spurs fans have now seen them win something. And now the lean might go the other way on quality of football, which of course they weren't getting under Postecoglou, and I do think it's right that he went, but they've brought a real pragmatist in. And just more broadly on that too, away from home, they're fantastic. I did the Leeds game recently where I thought they were really, really good. They're so well set up to win games away from home. Solid base, good on the counter, pacing behind, could have won that more comfortably than they did. But their home form across the last 18 months, Tottenham, I haven't got it in front of me, it's like 3 wins or 4 wins in 18 months. And it sort of goes to Nuno, sort of goes to Sean Dyche, sort of goes to any new manager, whoever Wolves get in. It's how you perform in front of those home fans that almost create your reputation with them. And when you are winning away at Leeds, that's great. But the people that go week in, week out, to your point earlier on, that fill out 60,000 in that stadium, be it tourists or whatever, lots, of course, available seats now the South Koreans have gone. But you've got like this relationship with the manager is a bit like, oh, I don't know about this. Because the ones that actually see it are seeing this. And so if they can't build that bond quickly, then I wonder if Thomas Frank, even though he's a good manager and will get him in the top 6, I think, will be liked enough to get another season if the home form doesn't get significantly better than what we've seen so far.
By the way, Richarlison, 3 goals, 2 assists to start the season. Kudus has not scored. Kolomwani has not scored. Javi Simons has not scored. He has 1 assist in 13 matches. I just think in the attacking phase of play, very light.
He scored the winner against Leeds.
You're right. Yeah, 1 goal in 15. 1 goal in 15 matches.
Yeah, I don't like Kudus. I'm just saying. Get your facts right. This is weak in the tackle, buddy. Okay, we do no research for this.
I was certainly weak in my tackle right there. I apologize. Thanks for cleaning that up. Bing, bing, bing.
Right, I want to move us on to something else. We can't do a full 40 minutes on Tottenham.
Or do we want to?
No. But I did think that bit was quite interesting. Let me ask you about Wolverhampton Wanderers, because so Gary O'Neill was a friend of mine, was sacked last year with our other friend Sean Derry at Wolves. Vitor Pereira comes in, and we've spoken about it on the show before, the whole pints and points thing. He got this collective mentality together. They went on that great winning run, and they went from not winning in 10 at the start of last season to staying up in the Premier League last season, which in many ways was a shame, because they deserved to go down, and they've been as embarrassing this season as we knew they would be following last season. The team has been stripped of talent year after year after year after year. Fosu and the owners have not replace that quality. And so, of course, when that happens with no long-term plan like a Bournemouth or Brighton have, you're always going to end up in this scenario, and there is no further money to invest. Pereira has gone. You can't go 10 games in professional football without a win. We've seen that with Pioli today at Fiorentina. We saw it to a degree with that Graham Potter. Sorry, Tim. He didn't get to 10, but he was always going to go.
It's a Swedish national team matchup, bro.
Yeah, I hope they never win a game again. I never liked clogs anyway. Are they clogs? That's
No.
Danish. I don't know.
That's
They have
Dutch.
clogs in Sweden? Maybe. I never liked IKEA. They make bad furniture.
How dare you?
Unless they
Volvo.
want to sponsor us, in which case we love IKEA. But like, they've sacked him. This is my broader point. So Gary O'Neill, some I can tell you, some I won't. He was going to get the job on Monday. And then there was a backlash from fans, not necessarily about Gary individually, but for the fact that they sacked Gary last year and then are going to bring him back the following year, having repeated the bad start that sort of Gary had. And now he's withdrawn himself from any further talks with Wolves because the backlash was so bad yesterday. I chatted to a couple of Wolves fans who were like, I can't believe it's happening because of the incompetence, they would say, of the people above. Tell me a bit about the fact that Pereira has gone. I knew he was going. We all knew he was going 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And their only idea was, I mean, is there only one name in the Rolodex? Like, Gary now don't want to do it, and so they don't know what they're going to do for this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's regret. I would assume it's regret that they fired him in the first place. Football's ruthless. It's cutthroat. It's ruthless, and we understand that once you get within that 5 to kind of 8 game window of not winning a match, all of a sudden there's an incredible amount of pressure. And we're talking monopoly money, by the way. Like, we're talking millions of pounds that are sat there depending upon how long the term of the contract is. And the pressure is to get it right. And the pressure is for the manager and his coaching staff to make sure, from an egotistical standpoint, that they're not embarrassed by losing their job, even though they know financially they're going to be just fine and they're going to get another job and they're going to move on and everything's going to be great. But at the same time, yeah, listen, I've never been a manager, nor do I ever have any plans or desires to go into management. I thought it was one of the most thankless jobs you could possibly have. You have all of these guys that ultimately are responsible, whether you survive or you get whacked. It really has nothing to do with you. You can have the best laid plans, but even in the match of the weekend, 36 minutes in, you get a red card and it all goes to shit. Sorry, Tim. So what I liked about Pereira was, points than pints. He immediately connected with the fan base, and I think that probably got him more games than ultimately other managers would deserve in the situation. But yeah, for Wolves, when I was surprised that Gary O'Neill's name was immediately linked to going back, because number one, then why did you sack him? Number two, that means there's instant regret that you really did like a lot of the things that he was doing, and you think that he could solidify your base, he could solidify your team, and immediately get you back on track with a couple of decent results. But this isn't like David Moyes returning to Everton. The timeline is too short. So maybe in the future there's an opportunity for Gary to return, but in the meantime, yeah, you're right. I mean, for as long as I can remember, even going back to Walter Zenga being the manager at Wolves, it's been a carousel of characters that have tried to come in and manage this group. And I think we probably look at the time with Nuno Espirito Santo as with maybe the most fondliness of, okay, they were solid, they were strong, they were competing for Europe, they were always within kind of that 7, 8, 9 range, and that you knew that they were just going to be a pain in the ass to play against. But you're right. I mean, whether it's Pedro Neto or Ruben Neves or Diego Jota, guys like that, they've got to figure out a way to find the best up and coming talent, at the same time those that are competent enough to compete at the highest level. And now they are in a bad spot. What is it? 2 points in 12 matches, something like that. 11 matches.
2 in 10. 2 in 10 for the second season running, no wins in 10. I mean, and on that as well, like, it does sort of feel like Wolves, Forest, and West Ham down there are all trying to sack themselves to safety. Certainly, Forest have done it twice already. I don't know how possible that is, but like the other element, and again, I don't get this directly from Gary, but I'd like your view on, if this job comes up. They're being linked with Rob Edwards now, who's the Middlesbrough manager, and there's even some talk about Eric Ten Hag, which I think is quite funny. I don't think it's realistic, but that's just in the rumor mills we record the show today. Like, what is the reason that you would take this job? Like, Vitor Pereira took it last year in a similar scenario, and he took it because he'd always wanted to get to England. But within a year, he's now untouchable in England. Like he'll never get another Premier League job, Vitor Pereira, because he took the wrong club. And I had an interesting conversation about Rob Edwards earlier on. Like, why would you get to Middlesbrough after his Luton experience? He was the guy who took him up and then got sacked midway through. He's gone to Borough. They're doing all right. He's got a good group of young players, and there might be something on there.
Hayden Morris likes him. Yeah, Hayden Morris likes him a lot. Yeah,
he is a good coach, Rob Edwards. Done a really good job in a few places, but he failed at Watford, struggled at Luton in the end. Like, why would you take this Wolves job now if you were someone like Rob Edwards?
I'm glad you brought Watford up. Is Wolves like the Premier League version of what Watford has been over the last 15 years in terms of the Championship and the Premier League? Like at this point, is there that much jeopardy in terms of like the lack of time because of the struggles that a manager will get at Wolves? Because this feels like what, fourth or fifth? No, it's probably more, right? Since Nuno left. It's got to be like 6 or 7 managers, right?
Bruno Lage, Vitor Pereira, Gary O'Neill. It might only be 3. It could be a 4.
Yeah, for some reason it feels like more. Yeah, listen, I think, and again, this is my perspective here in the States. If you're going to take this job, you're a fireman. You've got to solidify them. You got to settle them down immediately. You've got to go back to basics. It's got to be, as much as we kind of always joked about Sean Dyche, it's got to be, you're playing for set pieces, you're playing for corners, you're playing for a shutout. But listen, I think the allure of the Premier League, and you've got to be very, very careful with your decision making when you're talking about teams in the 14th position down. You have to be very, very sure of your capabilities and very, very confident in your relationship with the sporting director and the board itself. Like for Wolves, the first question I would have if I went into that conversation, how much money do I have in January? And how quickly can you make sure deals get done? Because whoever's going to come in is going to be smart enough that they've already dissected everything, both positive and negative, that Wolves are doing on the field. And then they're going to look at the cult of personality and they're going to try to get a feel for it. I always say, if you want the best opportunity to understand really the culture and the identity of a club, you go to the kitman and you go to the trainer and you pick up the phone call and you figure out a way to get a hold of them and you have as clear and concise of a conversation as you possibly can to understand who the leaders are, who the cheaters are, who are the ones that are on the peripheral of being turned either way based on, the little clicks and all of those things. I've never understood why teams and sporting directors and general managers and whatever presidents of soccer, why they don't pick up the phone when they're assessing players and the personality, because everyone puts their best foot forward. It's like dating a girl in the first 6 months, right? Oh, she's amazing, and all of a sudden she says something like 6 months and one day, and you're like, where did that come from? Who are you, bro? That's not the person I thought. They go off the deep end. Not that that ever happened to me in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, I mean, I think you got to do a real in-depth understanding, like behind the scenes search to understand what you're walking into. Because you talked about Erik ten Hag. I mean, God, what are the horror stories that we heard about the short amount of time at Bayer Leverkusen? I would say the same for the club, for the manager. Like you have to do a really deep dive. And my hope would be, if Wolves have gotten to this point where they sack Pereira, then you would assume in the last 3 or 4 matches, they have a very in-depth managerial list of guys that they have categorized as most important conversations to have immediately once this happened. Because it's absurd to think that between intermediaries, they haven't snuffed people out already of who's walking through the door, because they've got to make sure they get this right. Because as of right now, it seems like they're doomed for relegation. And so this next guy who comes in has got to be a massive personality that the fan base is going to get behind, that's going to give him time, a personality that can have the relationship or at least the presence with the media. So then you're not dealing with all of the helter-skelter in the back of the pages every single moment that you wake up. And like we always talk about, that first impression for the players, not that these guys are going, dude, what a sorry, Tim. This guy, oh, here we go. Like we're doing, like those things happen. Like I can't tell you how many times I'm like, look at him right now. Dude, he's got no idea. All right, this weekend we just play for us. All right, let's go. That's real. It happens.
And on that, let me do this section now. Actually, I'll do an Arsenal bit later. Let me link it to West Ham because I do, because I actually thought this weekend was the first time in 18 months that West Ham turned up. The first time since David Moyes left. There was nothing under Lopetegui. There was nothing under that man I loathe, who's now in charge of Sweden. And like last week was horrendous, the Brentford and Leeds game. So I don't forgive those. When you get 12 wins, I'll forgive them. But it would not have happened, I thought. And obviously, I would think this. But I speak to so many West Ham fans, as you know. I live in the Heartlands. I speak to people all the time. I see Freddie Potts walking his dog at the park near me. So I'm in the Heartlands, right? And like the team he picked against Newcastle at the weekend was the team that I wrote down for you 5 weeks ago.
You did.
And I posted about it, so you can see it online. I'm not just lying about this. I posted it loads of times. It was that team. The only change that I potentially made was I'd play Magassa and not Somerville, and I've been slightly more defensive. But whatever, more or less, the same team. Right back at right back, left back at left back, and play Freddie Potts. Like, when a team is in trouble, you need someone who's got that link to the fans. And you've got someone here with the most aggressive Essex side parting in history. His dad played at the club from 94 to 2001. His brother played at the club in 2013. And so they've had a Potts in the academy or at the club since like 1992. So, and he's now assistant manager, Steve Potts, as well, who, by the way, was born in Connecticut, which means if Freddie is good, he could play for the US at the forthcoming World Cup. And let me tell you, he's very good. And he's certainly better than, all the Americans you currently have. So,
has he had any U21 experience? Anything?
England youth, yeah, but it doesn't matter if for senior. So he could play senior.
Yeah.
He's not had a senior cap yet.
Hey, hold on. Let me get on with Pochettino real quick. I've already thumbed him. Why not even why not just text him at this point? I don't have his number. I don't have his number.
Text him and say, like, do you want someone who's like Tyler Adams but better?
Oh, hey, how dare you? Tyler was fantastic again this weekend.
Yes, that's true. They lost, didn't they? Anyway, I just wanted to...
It's Man City, bro.
Yeah, that's true. It was Newcastle. They're owned by a country. But, like,
worst jerseys ever.
The point is terrible. The point of it would be that fans know stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, I just wonder whether... Like, he had this idea, Nuno, of keeping Mark Robbins and Steve Potts, in charge, like, with him. And I don't know whether they didn't say to him, like, don't do any of this madcap crap they did against Brentford and Leeds. But fans would have picked that team. And I do think it's quite interesting to your point earlier on that if you just listen to the people that have watched this team week in and week out, they might not have the qualifications. But anyone who goes to that bowl of disappointment for 18 months would have gone, play Somerville, Wilson and Bowen, put Freddie actual Potts in midfield, who was magnificent. I've got to say, he was so good. And he'd been so good for Portsmouth. Every Portsmouth fan I know has been like, this kid's going to make it. He was at Wickham previously. The Wickham fans that I know, he's going to make it. I saw him in pre-season in America. He was always going to make it. Every time he came off the bench, he was the best player on the field. And Graham Potter was like, I don't know, I'll play Guido Rodriguez, I guess, because he was so useless. But then I thought Nuno would fix it. He was like, oh, no, I'm going to play Antichrist Irving instead, which was our Halloween nickname for him on Friday. But, like, listen to the fans, listen to people, gauge their opinion, Dunny. They know stuff.
Yeah, you're like the Nathan Shelley of West Ham right now.
Yes.
Just give you the job, bro.
Give it to me.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Simple. Who would have known that playing players in their natural position would be beneficial after 4 matches?
I know. Rocket science. But I still, well, this is the thing. If they could have signed Nuno Walls, I'm sure they would have done. Two weeks ago, I wouldn't have done it. But best they played in 18 months. It cheered me up. The other bit I wanted to ask you in the Premier League, one other quick Premier League story, is just on the Arsenal defensive record. And like they're playing Slavia Prague like in about an hour from we record this, so they might have conceded, probably not. But as we speak, 7 consecutive games without conceding in all competitions for the second time in the club's history. Previously doing it September to October 1987. Great Arsenal team back then under George Graham. That was a run of 7. There's another record about, where is it here? If they keep a clean sheet against Slavia Prague, it'll be the most they've kept in a row in 122 years of the club existing. And in 3 of those games, the Burnley game the weekend just gone, the West Ham game and the Fulham game, they didn't concede a shot. Never mind a goal, they didn't concede a shot. So, Dunny, tell us how this is happening, because we've seen good defences before. Is this Carvalho, Terry, Cole, the Chelsea defence?
It's their year as of right now. I mean, they're 6 points clear. They had the very small margin loss on the road at Liverpool. I believe they drew against City, and all of the other games have been wins. Obviously, until they lift the Premier League trophy, there's going to be a conversation about Mikel Arteta. There's going to be a conversation about set pieces. There's going to be all the throwing, all that stuff, and I get it. But in any other world, again, which we haven't seen some exceptional talent, Arsenal probably in an alternate universe would have lifted multiple Premier League trophies. But this is feels like it's their strongest team. It feels like whatever Mikel Arteta and his coaching staff, Gabriel Heinze, being included this year, kind of help dialing them in with just a little bit more intensity, just a little bit more focus. Yeah, they're really, really impressive. As you said, away against Slavia Prague, away against Sunderland, home against Spurs, home against Bayern, away at Chelsea. So not too tricky the first two matches, but what I think we're also seeing is a certain amount of rotation. We're seeing a certain amount of trust, and we've as much as we always say when really good players need to take time. Obviously, we're talking about Sesko, and when we're talking about everything Florian Wirtz, the conversation surrounding at Liverpool. This Arsenal team has spent the money where they've needed to spend it, and Compier is going to be a really interesting one to keep an eye on as he continues to try to work his way into the group defensively after coming over from Bayer Leverkusen with a short amount of time left in the window. So yeah, I mean, there's really nothing that you can nitpick at so far for Arsenal, which has made Arsenal fans extremely excited, specific to all the other hiccups we've seen from the other teams. But seems like Man City's starting to wind up the engine a little bit more with the way that they're, I guess, trying to manage the short turnaround time in the off season with their participation in FIFA Club World Cup.
I've got two further bits for you, which are both American soccer related. Before that, though, do you want to cook for a couple of minutes on Man United being locked in and good again? Because I mean, you've been trying to avoid Man United, haven't you?
I'm not ready. No, not ready. No, because
when do we get there? You're like the boy with the hair. Like, when are we allowed to ask you about Man United again? What's the line?
I'm gonna need a couple more games because I was feeling really good at the weekend, and then I watched them capitulate and give up those two goals, and I was like, yeah, they're the same team. So no, I'm not there yet. Although very excited about Buemo and Cunha. I think those two are continuing to show that they are worthy of the amount of money spent on them. No, I'm not. No, I'm not going to do it. Stop. Shut up. I'm not ready. Yeah.
What if they beat Tottenham on Saturday? Can we start next week's show with it?
Oh, absolutely. Banter time. Yeah, banter time. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, it's a big one.
Right, good. Okay, we'll bookmark that for next week. Right, two questions for you on American soccer. One is about ChatGPT and one's about MLS. What do you want first?
Go with Laura Harvey because I've got a really soft spot for Laura Harvey. We go way back when she was the head coach of Utah Royals.
Because I love this story, and I spoke to my wife about this.
It's
this
crazy.
Week, and
yeah.
She basically said she uses ChatGPT for like everything. It's the jump-off point for everything she does, and she has a proper job. So I did think the backlash to this was quite interesting, but the story itself was quite interesting. So in case you missed it, let me just read you this bit from The Athletic. Seattle Reign head coach Laura Harvey says she has leaned on AI to help inspire her tactics in the NWSL this season using ChatGPT. She says, quote, "One day in the off-season, I was writing things into ChatGPT like, what is Seattle Reign's identity? And it would spurt it out. And I was like, I don't know if that's true or not." This is her on the Soccerish podcast. She goes on, and then I put in, what formation should you play to beat NWSL teams? And it spurted out every team in the league and what formation you should play. And for two teams, it went, you should play a back five. So I did. No joke. That's what I did. And this is from Colin Miller's piece in The Athletic. I thought this was really interesting because I started to use ChatGPT, I've said to you before, as basically Google. I don't use anything else. That's basically what I use. It is a bit annoying in that it always tells me my ideas are amazing, even though they're sometimes obviously crap.
Yeah.
What did you make to this?
Yeah, first off, I think if you are... If you're not utilizing all the technology available to you, you're missing out on a certain amount of knowledge that maybe you weren't even thinking about. So it was actually you that inspired me to kind of go into ChatGPT and start messing around a little bit. I also use Grok over on Twitter. And I try to go back and forth just to make sure that I'm, for some of the things it's still working through, right? The algorithm and the information, and there's still mistakes. And that's one thing that I'm very, very, very aware of. But I do go in, and for me, what I use it for, like, say if I'm doing my players to watch, I'll be like Thomas Muller's strengths, and I'll kind of read through, and then I'll build how I want. I'm not copying and pasting, but I'm building. I'm like, okay, it helps reestablish all the gray areas and all the things that I'm missing off my back shoulder. And then what I'll do is I'll actually do the same. Like this weekend, I said Austin FC versus LAFC, a tactical breakdown, and I want to see because I want to learn. I'm constantly, especially tactically, I'm constantly digging into certain things and certain matchups. So as much as I go through game notes and as much as I go through, different websites to help me kind of get ready for games, it gives you a phenomenal kind of like game breakdown, and it makes you really start thinking about matchups and shapes and identities and tactics with and without the ball and how they're morphing. And then obviously I'm lucky enough to talk to managers and I get the insight of what they're thinking. So I think the only thing that Laura did wrong was that she was the first to really talk about it. Her honesty to admit it. I think there's a lot of managers. I think there's a lot of coaches. I think there's a lot of tacticians. I think there's a lot of broadcasters that are using it, and they're just gun shy of taking this type of heat and this type of criticism. I will say this for Laura Harvey. And I got to know her at Utah Royals when she was the manager, and we did a coaching show with Mike Pecky and Mark, who was at the time the Real Monarchs head coach. And um, Laura Harvey is one of the most honest and genuine human beings that I've come across. And I've always really enjoyed my conversations with her as a person, but with her also as the manager of the Utah Royals. I thought it was outrageous the amount of heat she was taking. Like for these people, and I saw so many different posts that were trying to slaughter her for this. The holier than thou, the amount of complete dog opinions, sorry, Tim, that I saw out there trying to pontificate why she was so wrong and how the game's gone mad and all this stuff. It was absolutely wild to me. I didn't understand it. I didn't. And by the way, a lot of these people, I guarantee you, are using ChatGPT or using Grok in some way, shape, or form. So when she was saying this, I was like, yeah, because it's opening up her mind to something different. It's not going to a UEFA course. It's not going to a getting your A license, your A Pro license, which is a similar conversation. It's just condensed in a singular moment that you can encapsulate and you can read and you can understand, you can be inspired from. So for all these people, like I was like, I didn't understand any of it. Couldn't wrap my head around it.
I mean, would the pushback not be the ideas are supposed to come from you and they're supposed to be original and they're supposed to be like a part of your training and development? But if you can ask ChatGPT to do it, why don't you just have like an iPhone as the manager? Like that'd be the pushback.
So let's dumb it down then. What programs are these individual clubs and people using to identify players from around the world, as opposed to just flying to a random stadium and doing word of mouth and hearing about a player and then all of a sudden someone else catching your eye? I mean, literally, the modern game of or the modern day idea of going out and in the scouting networks, everybody's got this new algorithm that they're plugging and playing. And I need a 22-year-old right back that's 6'3" that runs like the wind, that average touches are 32 in a match, and this scores between an average of 3 goals and 8 assists a season. Boop 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 boop. Oh, you need to go to Denmark, and this is going to be the player that you're looking for. Hans Christian Andersen. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, let's just dumb it down. I understand what you're saying, but I think that's more fear based. That effectively we're all going to lose our jobs to computer science and AI, which I totally understand. I mean, look, I mean, some of the best music that we're seeing right now is artificially created. So yeah, I mean, listen, I don't have a problem with the honesty in it. I think it's more of the fear and the pontification of people trying to act like they're better than others. Yeah, stuff it. I'm over it.
I was with you until you said the AI music was good and soulless dross. But there we are.
Hey, by the way, have you seen
AI that sounds like John Lennon? They shouldn't. You shouldn't do that.
Have you seen some of like the remixes of like AI doing like country version of like 50 Cent in the club? It's
yeah,
pretty
but
good.
they're interesting, like freak show things. But I wouldn't rate them as like quality. But
No,
then again, I wouldn't rate 50 Cent either.
it's
And the
like
other
watching
bit,
West Ham.
just the we are like we're not NPCs anymore. We're the crappiest AI. We're Grok basically. The only other bit on this I was going to mention was I only read the piece in The Athletic. I didn't listen to the full podcast that she gave, but I do think that using it as a jumping off point is fine, as long as it's not
Yeah.
just taking it verbatim, which of course she isn't doing.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I was thinking about when I was trying to be a stand-up, which was far too difficult and there's no money in it. But I used to have you go on a website where you'd be like, the website was like jumpingoffpoints.com because you needed just something to start you. And it'll be like, imagine you're walking across the street, or imagine you're in a cafe, or what do you think about guitar strings, or whatever. You're like,
Yeah.
you know what I don't like? Cheese. And it wouldn't always give you something, but if you were like, what I would do is with a microphone, I'd walk around a room riffing to myself and recording the whole thing and seeing what came out. But you need something to start you. And so if the start point for ChatGPT is, have you ever thought about playing a big woman at the back? And then that maybe gave you like,
Jeez.
there's ever thought about playing Millie Bright, centre half, something like that? Like that might work for you. I don't know.
Yeah. I get it.
The other bit, we're a little bit long, but let me just ask you about what's going on in MLS. You've been away for a couple of days. You did the Dallas game against Vancouver, wasn't it, a couple of days ago?
Yeah. Then Maxie and I jumped in the car and drove 3 hours. Of course, I wasn't going to let Max Bredos drive 3 hours because if I was going to die, I was going to be in charge of dying myself. We ended up down in Austin against LAFC. Yeah, margins, man. What we've seen in the playoffs is just slim margins. And it's proactive versus reactive. It's goal side, ball watching, all of these things, some special goals. Obviously, Philly, Vancouver, and LAFC are through. We've still got game 3 matches between Charlotte and NYCFC on Friday. Then you've got Miami, Nashville, Cincinnati Crew, Seattle, Minnesota on Saturday, and then on Sunday, San Diego against Portland. We've seen teams push to the brink. We've seen teams in the last second concede goals. And we've seen some unbelievable goalkeeping moments from the penalty spot and some horrific penalties taken that basically effectively ended the season for teams. Right now, it's about special players. Lionel Messi, Thomas Muller, Sonny, they've been phenomenal. Philly's all about being grit and determination. And now we're at that stage of the season where we go into these final match days and we understand what home field advantage looks like. We understand what being on the road looks like. We think about tactics and shape and identity and keeping the game in front of you if you're a road team. But ultimately, I think there's 2 ways to look at it. 3 ways. You need those special players to score goals. You need some phenomenal moments goalkeeping wise that can keep you in the game. And this is the part of the season where I think the players that don't get the spotlight end up being the players that shine brightest. And for me, I was talking about Mark Delgado at LAFC. I think very quietly one of the best midfielders in Major League Soccer. Came over from the LA Galaxy in the offseason. He's already won MLS Cup trophies with Toronto and LA Galaxy. Through all of the conversations this year, I think Mark Delgado is put in on both sides of the ball some of the best performances. I mean, if we categorize him, he's an 8 out of 10 every single game. And both he and guys like Sergio Palencia and Tim Tillman putting in some big performances, some monster performances, as was Thomas Muller, and then right place, right time on set pieces, dying moments. So, yeah, a fun little Texas 2-step that T.O. Max and I had this weekend.
Does he think the same about your driving? Or does he have any complaints about the way you drive? I imagine you to be quite a timid driver, like an old lady going
nah, bro. Nah, we were locked in about 83 miles an hour cruising from Texas down to Austin. The only thing that he was complaining about, but it was also because he does this thing where he puts one iPod in and just doom scrolls and like has to be involved with social media moments, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram. So we had it on Sirius XM-FC. So we were kind of bouncing around we had it on Sirius XM. So we were kind of bouncing around. It could be like 70s on 7, 80s on 80s, 90s on 90. Some of the country music, some of the old school kind of like take me back. So we were kind of like bouncing around everywhere. Well, God, let me pull up the text really quick because he had a complaint. And I can't remember what his complaint was. He said, oh my gosh. Oh, I can't believe you played Love in an Elevator in its entirety by Aerosmith and I didn't switch channels. And I said, yeah, that's because it was epic. Sorry, Tim, in the moment. So and I didn't kill an armadillo, which usually feels like a speed bump when you end up bouncing over one of those things, an online crap.
I don't know why, but I thought you were going to say we were somewhere around Barstow on the edge of the desert when the drugs began to take hold. I don't know why, but I thought that's what you were going to say.
You know, if you grew up in Southern California and you ever did any of those I-15 trips to Vegas, you know exactly where you are, you know exactly the movie reference, and you understand exactly why 48 hours is more than enough in Las Vegas.
Yes, you go bankrupt these days. Anyway, look, we're out of time for this
You lose
week.
a little bit more than that.
Next week, yeah, but what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Okay?
Yeah, but dignity always travels with you.
That's true. That's my personal assistant, Dignity. Anyway, we're out of time for today's program. We'll do some more. We'll do some Man U next week when they beat Tottenham, and Dunny wants to gloat for a full 45 minutes of the program. Otherwise, if Tottenham win, I guess we'll start with Spurs again next week. That'd be weird. Either way, Dunny, what a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. That's Brian Dunseth over there. I'm Tom Ronnie. Tim Horsey produced the program. It's the Week in the Tackle podcast. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.